This week saw the passing of President Jimmy Carter at the age of 100. President Carter came to the coast a number of times in the 70s, first as governor of Georgia and then again campaigning. More recently, the Carters came to South Mississippi in 2008 to build Habitat for Humanity homes as part of Hurricane Katrina recovery. Here's what the president had to say then about the rebuilding process.
And I would say that the Gulf Coast region has been one of the most emotional for us and one of the most gratifying, because the blight of the hurricane was so tremendous that when I first came down here right afterwards and saw very little being done, we were somewhat discouraged. But we've seen a remarkable rejuvenation of the commitment of the people, and the community spirit that binds people together has been unexcelled anywhere else in the world.
And the coast rejuvenation is still continuing almost 2 decades after Hurricane Katrina. Here to talk about the Carters' legacy and their humanitarian efforts through Habitat here on the coast and across the world, Mississippi Gulf Coast Habitat for Humanity CEO Chris Monforton. Thanks for joining us this morning. And you were actually around President Jimmy Carter a number of times, not just when he was here. You made trips with him around the world for Habitat for Humanity. What was he like as a person?
President Carter was fantastic. I was sharing earlier that at first our most famous volunteer was a little intimidating, wanting to talk, starting to talk to him about our work at Habitat. But being able to relate to him and connect on a more personal level about personal relations and things that personal passions, he was so engaging and so genuine.
What does someone like that, former president, do for your organization when you're trying to do good?
So President Carter, as I said, our most famous volunteer, really started working with Habitat in our infancy. The organization had been less than 10 years old, and really just elevated us to a platform where we had a global leader that was making it very personal for him and helping us tell our story. But more personally, here on the Gulf Coast, when he came in 2008, it was 3 years after Hurricane Katrina, he really elevated, that our recovery was really just getting started at that time.
Yeah, and we're seeing that visit in 2008 there. We've all seen video of him actually picking up a hammer and nailing boards together. Was that real? Would he actually do that and contribute to the effort?
I will tell you that President Carter was an accomplished woodworker, but he was an extreme carpenter. It was some of the most intimidating thing to work on President Carter's house himself. A lot of folks would always say, "Is like, I want to work with President Carter," and you'd have to, really caution them. Say, "Is like, he doesn't take breaks, and he takes it very seriously." One of the stories I share is that he was very competitive. That he always wanted to make sure that his house was going to get done in that 5 days, and was going to be there until the last board was nailed if he had to. We had a little group that would come in after the day was done to make sure that if his house was a little bit behind, would get caught up so that President Carter and the team could come right in and pick up
and meet his expectations.
Absolutely.
Right. How much of a difference did it make? Did Habitat for Humanity and his initiative make following Hurricane Katrina?
So our work, the storm was tremendous, and just wiped out so much of the Gulf Coast. But for us locally, President Carter coming in 3 years after the event really helped us. We were just getting our infrastructure and operations back to where we could start to really ramp up. And so having somebody of his profile be able to come in and elevate the need, but also the continued support for volunteers, for government, that we had a long ways to go. Our largest activities came after President Carter left. From a productivity standpoint, we built more homes, we served more families in the years after that 2008 visit.
And the need continues today.
Absolutely.
What's the latest projects you have going on right now?
So right now we've got a handful of large roofing projects that we're looking to get launched in this coming year. Working with families that had damage after Hurricane Zeta, and then also homes that have aged roofs that are seeing a lot of damage or increased costs of insurance. And so we're spending a lot of time on roof replacement work. We've got a handful of new builds and a whole bunch of owner-occupied rehab.
The work continues, and this week the funeral services for President Carter will be held. When you're watching those services, what are you going to be thinking?
For me, I'm going to be spending an awful lot of time thinking about the relationship and the interplay between him and Rosalind, his wife. The two of them together were committed servant leaders, and their ability to connect, not just on the work site, but what was important for them was connecting with the people themselves. I know my wife and I and my family, we've been touched by them, and hundreds of thousands of other volunteers have been motivated and will continue to carry on their legacy going forward.
All right, Chris Monforton with Habitat for Humanity, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And we thank all of you for joining us here on WLOX News this week. We hope you have a great week ahead.